Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Buck, and Calvin Mutinoff coming to you live from our home here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We are delighted to be joined by the fabulous farm babe from the Midwest Farm Report. Pam Jahnke is here. It's been too long, my friend. How are you?
Oh, I'm well. I'm back. I'm back after quite a little experience last week with World Dairy Expo. So you're catching me on a good day. I finally have got a little energy back. So
we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. We want to talk about the World Dairy Expo that was going on. That's a big event. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But there's so many other things to talk about, Pam, especially with regards to farmers and tariffs, and in particular, Wisconsin soybean growers. So
Right.
I'm curious what you are hearing from folks when you're on the ground.
Well, for those of you that are watching on the stream, you may see me paging. I'm kind of watching headlines right now because we're expecting today more details on the federal aid that's designed to go directly to farmers that are being hit by the lower soybean prices. Now, there's a ripple effect all the way around on this. I don't want you to think that this is just for soybean growers. We understand that there may also be some other grains that are incorporated in some of this federal aid. That's why I'm kind of antsy about the details. But
Sure.
basically, what this is designed to do is China has been missing in action as far as purchasing U.S. soybeans. They are purchasing incredible amounts of soybeans from Brazil and Argentina and other areas. Some of our U.S. soybeans might be, as they say, backdooring it, coming around from other vendors into China. But as far as direct sales, we've had zero.
Zero.
That's a major hit. And it's a statement, obviously. And so as farmers go into the harvest, the option of what's out there as far as price isn't very good. This morning, I was talking with a commodity broker, and he said for farms that are in the upper Midwest, so that'd be Minnesota, North Dakota, even South Dakota, all the way across, anybody that's growing soybeans, most of those soybeans would normally go to the Pacific Northwest, out by Seattle, to go out ocean bearing to
Right.
China. Well, they don't have them. They don't need them over there. So it's not only disrupting, and the farmers there are being, I'll call it, dinged, because normally they would get a premium if they can get those beans going to the international market. It's a straight shot. You don't have to worry about a lot of congestion as far as the rail lines, so they can get her moving. That brings them a premium because of location, speed of harvest, that type of thing. That's all gone. So those marketing options that farmers normally had are all gone. So the money will likely go from the farmer's mailbox, shall we say, directly to everybody that they owe, because they've got bills that these beans were supposed to take care of.
To pay for it, yeah.
So fertilizer bills, seed bills, diesel, anything like that. So don't think that farmers are going to be driving around in Escalades or anything like that. And my apologies to anybody that's driving an Escalade. I love them too. But you get my point. They are not going to be going on vacations and all this kind of stuff. Most of that money is going directly to pay the debt that crop incurred when they planted it. So like I said, I wish I knew a little bit more as of right now on the details, the amount. The other question I have is, now that the federal government shut down, who is going to get this money to them? USDA's normally would go through the Farm Service Agency office or some of our arteries that way. We're not getting anything from USDA today.
Yeah.
Today, like an idiot, I walked into the studio looking for my weekly crop progress report. Yankee,
Not there.
that's generated by USDA. So
Yeah.
it's little things like that that we are still piecing together. So as I said, if you're watching on the stream, that's one of the reasons why I'm scrolling through my phone to see if there's any breaking news or if we're getting any details as of this time.
Well, and Pam, for someone like me who doesn't know that process as far as getting the money, it's not just USDA. If we're talking about money being sent to farmers, what is the entire process? Does it have to go through Congress, be approved, or is it just it's authorized by someone and the USDA issues money and then there you go?
Back her up to the first time that the Trump administration was in place. This is exactly the same thing they did at that time. Okay. And basically, because farmers are such a documented group of people, I mean, the federal government's got paper on them everywhere because of government programs, checkoff programs, all that kind of stuff. So the footprint is there as far as how.
Mhm.
We don't know how much, and we don't know when. And again, like I said, if it's going to involve a USDA mechanism to try to deliver that money, even though most of it all goes direct deposit into the farm bank account, like I said, I'm still uncertain of which phalange of the federal government is going to pull the trigger. But no, this
Yeah.
is exactly the same thing that the Trump administration did the first time he was in office and lost some of our critical markets. Again, open the pocketbook and there she goes.
Well, and going back to the first Trump administration, our farmers never came back entirely from that. As you said, they lost markets that never came back because other countries were like, well, I'm going to find a more stable market where I can rely on things.
Yeah, that's a strong conversation that we're having in agriculture right now. And there's certain commodities that lend themselves to that kind of thing. For example, at any given time in the world, somebody's growing wheat. Well, you're not really at a competitive advantage if you're growing wheat and you can't market everywhere. Soybeans are getting to be the same way. Right now, South America dominates the world production in soybeans. So as long as China wants to keep going with them, despite their currency uncertainty, transportation issues in country and out, they've got the beans. But I've heard analysts say that China's consumption of soybeans is bigger this year than it was last year. So ultimately, they are going to have to come to the United States or, like I said, backdoor it from the United States somehow. But to your point, Jane, I mentioned it at the outset. The federal monies that are going to be distributed to farmers to offset the soybean losses are to offset debt that they are currently carrying on the soybeans they've got that they're
That
harvesting
are
now.
sitting there.
They're
Yeah.
not coming ahead. There is no
Right.
profit. You are
Right.
just trying to cover your butt and keep credit coming your way for the growing season of 2026. So, yeah, to your point, this isn't a recovery. This is basically making sure that farmers stay viable to get into the next growing season.
It's a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
It's a Band-Aid.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If
And every farmer knows it.
if you're just joining us, we are speaking to the fabulous Farm Babe, the host of the Midwest Farm Report, Pam Jahnke. She is our guest today on Matenaer On Air, and we're talking to her about we talked to her as well as Darren Von Ruden about the farming world, getting updates from the community, and we're talking about the devastation to the soybean market, which has been zeroed out here in the United States due to tariff policies and whatnot. And the question I have for you, Pam, is you talk to farmers way more than I do. And we know, but what I do know is that they don't want handouts. They don't want the government coming in and writing checks all the time. They want partnership. They want leadership. But how do they feel about another bailout?
Yeah, well, I think what they ultimately are hoping is this is just one example of what will turn out to be a better outcome. Remember, farmers are like all of us. They are not, and this is a poor pun, they're not siloed. So it is not the only thing they think about. They think
Mhm.
about immigration. They think about the possibilities down the road. If I have to suffer pain now, but it's going to bring change or dividends or better markets or more operations that I can work with, they will take that pain. Don't get me wrong. They don't
Yeah.
want to check, but they are ready to take the pain if in the end it helps the United States get into a better place with Canada, with the European Union. I mean, I know we're focusing on China, and rightly so. But if you talk to farmers, they'll say, hey, cheese exports are up over 30%. That's going into the world marketplace. There have
Mhm.
been some agreements. We've got a lot of product now that's going into Southeast Asia. I never imagined. But as people's income grow, they have more interest in dairy products, for example. So granted, soybeans is a major, major commodity for the United States, for
Mhm.
Wisconsin farmers. But when you talk to farmers on an individual basis, they are wise to the whole makeup of the pie. They
Yeah.
don't focus on just one
One
thing,
thing.
especially in
Yeah.
Wisconsin. Now, that's Wisconsin. You get to other states where they are much more, I won't say monoculture, but corn, beans, pigs. That's
Mhm.
Iowa. Corn, bean.
Yeah.
Then obviously they get a little more excited. In Wisconsin, we've got such diversity.
Sure.
We see things a little differently. But like I said, they still would prefer to be a competitor in the open marketplace and go for it than have to stand by and see if this is going to take care of just the soybean bill. Now, that's just soybean. We're not talking about corn yet. We don't know if that's included. We're not talking about wheat. In Wisconsin, we've got dairy cows. There's nothing about, how are you going to feed your dairy cows, that kind of stuff. So it's a process. We've seen it before. We'll see how this one goes, if it's got any tweaks. But as I said, as of right now, we're just lacking a lot of details.
I'm curious though, Pam, and then we got to go to a break, but I saw a soybean farmer on Newsmax yesterday,
Mhm.
and he essentially said, we are being tariffed. So if I want to buy a part for my tractor, I pay more in order to get that part because of these tariffs. And now the president is going to give me back my money that I paid in tariffs. Is there any resentment that you're hearing among farmers about that?
No, no. And I'd be curious to know where that guy was. I mean, geography matters in agriculture. It really does. And I understand. And it also matters what kind of equipment you're running. If you're running John Deere, that's still primarily sourced in the United States as far as, the parts and that type of thing. If you've got something that comes from the European Union, that may be something that comes from Canada. That may be a brand that is a victim. But the bottom line is the tariff money is supposedly some great savings pot somewhere being held by the federal government, and a dipper of that is coming back to U.S. farmers in the form of these discussed funds that are going to be targeted specifically to soybeans. So I get his point.
But at the same time, you said that dairy is doing well.
Yeah, dairy's doing very well. I mean, almost, it makes you kind of wonder when you can see cheese exports go up over 30%. And now remember, Wisconsin has got a huge corner on that market because of specialty cheeses. Even with tariffs, you cannot find the flavors of cheeses produced in Wisconsin anywhere else in the world. You cannot find cranberries produced in Wisconsin anywhere else in the world. You just have to understand. So if you want them, you got to step up.
You got it. Yeah.
The relationships have been there. We talked about that a lot at World Dairy Expo. But like I said, farmers understand and will really understand it. I just wrote a check for my fertilizer bill for next year and had to have a bottle next to me so that I could get through it, because that is insane. The fertilizer bill on my small farm in Oconto County, it was up 30% compared to last year.
Jeez.
And that's not only global demand on fertilizer, but it's also, we're going to dig you while we can. Could be Vladimir, could be, you don't know. But all I know is PMD Farms kicked in extra 30% just to make sure that my crops will have something to grow with next year.
Wow, we're going to continue our conversation. She is the fabulous farm babe from the Midwest Farm Report. Pam Jahnke is our guest, and we'll continue on the other side. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvitini on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up in about a half an hour, we will wrap up the show as we always do with a segment called This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it is the hot and spicy edition, so stay tuned for that. Right now, though, we're joined by the fabulous farm babe with the Midwest Farm Report. Pam Jahnke is here. We're talking all things farming. We wanted to talk a little bit, Pam, about, and we've talked about this before with you, about mental health on the farm and whether or not our farmers are getting enough help, whether or not they are seeking help. Can you give us a little update on where we are on that?
Well, we're focused in the Midwest Farm Report, along with Rural Mutual Insurance this week, is trying to really bring visibility to the resources that are available to farms and farm families. This is a difficult time, always is. I mean, harvest is busy. You're dependent on the weather, which has been very favorable for Wisconsin farmers this year.
So far.
But you do get tired. That stretch last week, they estimated that we probably had somewhere in the neighborhood of 55,000 people at World Dairy Expo. Probably could have had about another 10 or so if the weather wouldn't have been so good. But Wisconsin farmers stayed home to keep harvesting, because in Wisconsin, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah.
You keep on rolling. But when you start doing long hours, part of the reason we talk about it is safety. You're not as sharp. You miss that step. just simple things that can be life altering when you're working around big equipment on the farm.
Yep.
So we think safety. But then there's also the questions that we were talking about before the break. Holy man, this crop of soybeans that I thought was going to bring profit is now barely break even, if that. You worry about that kind of thing. You worry about milk production is up quite substantially. That means milk prices are starting to slip. You
Are down,
worry
yeah.
about that kind of thing. So there's never a lack of things to preoccupy farmers when it comes to worry. But we do point out that they're getting better about using resources. I've talked to Jess Beauchamp. She is with the Wisconsin Farmer Wellness Program. It's 24/7. Farmers are becoming more comfortable calling her and saying, here's what's going on, or just a little something. She can give them a voucher. And she said the percentage of vouchers that are now being used has gone up,
That's
which is a good
great.
sign, which is a
That's-
really good sign.
Yes.
I'll tell you, and honestly, I don't think we have to segment out farmers. Farmers are like all the rest of us. It's not just about the commodities and the weather. It's also about maybe somebody in the family's got a drug problem or an alcohol problem, or there's an abuse problem going on, or just family dynamics. Listen, we all know that is not easy to talk about.
Mhm.
Farmers are always about rub a little dirt on it and keep on going. It'll fix itself. It'll be
Right.
fine. And we know
Right.
that's not the case. So again, call volumes remain pretty steady at the Wisconsin Farm Center, housed within the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. They've got the Farmer Wellness Program that's 24/7. So if Jess isn't answering the phone, there is another counselor that will answer the phone to make sure you're getting hooked together. Jess also told me that more and more, and I think we learned this, farmers sure learned it during the pandemic. They are creating virtual forums where they can come together, just like we're doing on the civic media
Sure.
stream, and talk
Mhm.
about what's going on in their lives. And you can remain anonymous, shut your camera off if you still want to be involved in the conversation. And you form a little bit of a bond with other people that are struggling with the same kinds of things in the same profession. So are we there yet? Meh, I don't know. Do I feel better that there's a little bit more uptake on the resources that are out there? Yes. Do we have a ways to go? Yes. Like I said, there's a lot of different things that any one family's dealing with. Farmers are no different than that. But I
Sure.
do see, especially the younger farmers, are more
Mm.
likely to engage in the conversation. The older, the older demographic is still
It's
rub
still hard.
the dirt on it and get on with things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna fix it myself, and I don't need any help. And there is no shame in asking for help.
Yeah.
There is no shame in admitting
Well,
that you need somebody to
people
talk
care.
to. And but what you just mentioned with those forums that they're having, that's a huge thing.
Yeah,
That's a huge step in the right direction.
I sometimes think that farmers, when I get with my farmer buddies, now granted, I'm an old broad, so they've known me for quite a while, but they never do it. They never think that people care about them. They
Ugh.
just don't think people care about them. And you and I see social media posts and all that kind of stuff, and they just are so doggone humble. They do not think people care about them like that. And I'll tell you, I've talked to guys that are very upset with their situation, be it the farm or whatever. And I said, you know what, buddy? You don't realize what you can do. You are a jack of all trades, master of none. You're a mechanic. You're an electrician. You know animal nutrition. You know budgets. You do accounting. You do bookkeeping. You do all of these things that any one person dedicates their career to. You do it all in a day.
Yeah.
And you take it for granted. Do not sell yourself short. Don't knock your value down. You
Mhm.
are incredible. And sometimes, like I said, it's that tree from the forest kind of thing. Sometimes I need to wrap them alongside the head and say, look at how great you are. Look at how fabulous you are,
That's why you're the
Everything.
fabulous, but that's why you're the fabulous farm babe.
And I put a link to that program through the farm center in our show notes. So if there's
thank
people out there listening who want to seek help, who need a voucher, go there, click that link, civicmedia.us/shows. Look for Matenaer On Air. It's hour 2 of today. It'll be there for you if you need help.
Yep, beautiful.
Check it out. Take advantage of it. She is with the Midwest Farm Report, the fabulous farm babe, and our friend Pam Jahnke. Thank you so very much, Pam. It was great to see you. We will talk to you hopefully soon.
Absolutely. Thrilled to be
Take
here.
care.
Have a good one.
You
Thank
too.
you, too.
News coming up next, and then Civic Media's genie of just about everything, Terry Barr, will be here. Stay close. This is Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.